If 12 weeks for non-Singaporean, okay, for non-Singaporean child, and 16 weeks for Singaporean child. So why I circle all this is, I do find some company, they may be in certain industry, let's say healthcare industry, they tend to give slightly higher benefits regarding leave. And that's why some I found they provide up to 15 days for marriage leave, and let's say 120 days, slightly more than the 120 days regarding all these benefits. And for compassionate, typical market practice is 3 days. And childcare and extended childcare, we found most of the company, they respond, they will just follow no regulation, which is 6 days for Singaporean child and 2 days for non-Singaporean. I will say what is most important for me to show you all these statistics is, sometimes we want to make sure we follow the market practice and the law requirement. But more important is, we think about our own organization, what is most important, and how to show employer care to the employee. We do find some of the company, so for this page, I will just list down some of not standard leave entitlement. Some company they provide, but not the majority. So here what I show you is, around 20% of company, they provide birthday leave, only for 1 day, birthday leave 1 day. And some of them, they provide study, or they call examination leave, typically around 3 to 5 days, or based on actual need. Some company, not many, only 6% of them out of our total survey sample, they provide, so maybe they call it flexible, maybe they call it casual, maybe they call it welfare leave, 1 to 3 days a year. Why I want to show you this is, when we consider leave benefits, we would like to say we should look at our own employee profile, whether they are young employee, or they are at the middle age, or they are relatively higher age in your company. I actually found one company is very interesting. They provide so-called heartbroken leave, because they have a lot of young employee in the organization. You know, for the younger generation, they have sometimes some problem with their girlfriend or boyfriend. So they just put it in a very interesting way. They just call it heartbroken leave. 1 day a year, you can actually take such leave. It's actually to show employer care to the employee. Not saying every company need to do so, but you based on what you need to provide to your employee. If I'm too fast, please let me know, or you can ask me any question, use the chat box. Okay, then I will move on to talk about medical insurance. For medical insurance, in the past, when we conduct such a survey, we found company typically will offer fully claimable of the expenses for the employee, meaning employee does not need to spend any money for medical treatment. But nowadays, to share costs, to bring some protection to the company as well, we find actually more and more company, they will consider, or at least they will review sharing costs with employee. They will consider such method. And if employee need to share certain costs for the medical expenses, what is the typical amount they need to do? We found from our latest survey, average is 15%, and most is 10%. So around 10% to 15% is actually the market practice. But you can also find company has very wide range of this choice. The minimum can be only 1%. They just want to ensure employee will not overuse such benefits. But some company will actually need the employee to share 50% of the total cost. It depends on your need and what kind of treatment you need to have. And for per case and for per year medical claim cap, but per case is typically around 50 Sing dollar per case. And per year, the cap is typically at 1,000. But again, what I want to show you here is, sometimes when we look at the survey result, we should not just look at the average or most. Mo is the most typical amount we find company will provide. But you can also find there is a very, very wide range for company to provide for this outpatient treatment. Of course, it can depend on whether we provide GP or specialist coverage. For GP, maybe the cost will be much lower. For specialist treatment, the cost may be higher. And for this survey, because today I don't have a lot of time to show you all kind of position level. If for certain expatriate or for certain executive, you will expect such amount will be higher, because here I just show you one company, one sample basics. But some company, I do find they have general employee coverage and executive coverage or expatriate coverage. Then you will find that amount will have more detail to show you. But what I want to show you here is 50 per case, 1,000 per year is typical amount, but the range can be very wide. So regarding other work benefits, typically we will talk about meal, mobile phone, and car or transportation. All this, because it's not statutory requirement, a company may or may not provide such benefits to employee. It only depends on company need to see whether you want to do so. So we found actually for meal allowance is the most common to provide among all the free items in meal session, but only 18% of company they provide this. Some of them, because they are in relatively remote area in Singapore, that's why they will provide such meal allowance to employee. And if they provide, the typical amount to provide is 200 Sing dollar per month. For mobile phone, some of the company will provide a mobile phone to the employee for work purpose, typically for sales, for client-facing position, or for management position. Around 37% of company, they will do so. And they may also provide allowance. Typical amount is around 150 Sing dollar. Range is actually quite narrow for this range. It's about 100 to 200. So it's about this amount. And if they don't provide mobile allowance, they may allow employee to do the expenses claim. The claim amount is close to 100 Sing dollar, ranging from 50 to 200. Car provision, similarly, is based on actual need. Sometimes you will only pay over car provision to certain level of employee. Typically, will be for top management or C-suite employee. Only 60%, that's right. And for car allowance, it is 40%. What is the differential for here for car allowance and transportation? We are talking about if car allowance is for you to support the use of a car or a vehicle. For transportation, it's typically for you to take public transportation or take taxi. So you will find the amount, if for car allowance, for more senior staff is around 550 Sing dollar, ranging from 100 to 1,750. Some company, they don't provide you a physical car, but they will just provide you the car allowance to support all the use of a car on the daily basis. And that's why you can find the range can be from 100 to 1,750. For transportation allowance, the range won't be so far, so why? Because it's more for the public transport. It's 50 to 300 per month. And to offer some more benefits to employee, we also found about half of the company, they will provide non-service award. Typically, it starts from 5 years. Some of company, they start from 3 years, but most of company, they start from 5 years. And the gift or cash equivalent award will be around 500 to 2,000 Sing dollar, depending on which non-service award we are talking about, whether it's for 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. Typically, every year of service will be equivalent to about 100, which is the common market practice. And some company, they will offer product discount of their own product to employee, but it is usually only for certain applicable industry. For example, for retail, for F&B, food and beverages. the typical market practice, they will offer around 30% discount of their own company product if employee want to purchase it. Some company, they will also provide flexi benefit scheme for those, let's say for family trip or for membership, professional membership. The amount can be from 200 to 1,500, depending on whether company want to provide such flexible benefits. Just now we talk about medical insurance. So similarly, company will usually will offer health screening or dental service to employee. So at least half of company or even 70% of company will provide dental support to the employee. Here we separate the amount for you between top management and general employee. So for top management, you will find the amount is actually much higher than the general employee. So from here, what we can show you is company may offer specific scheme for those top management. Of course, some of them will just provide very basic plan. Like you can see minimum is still 100. But some of them, the coverage actually can be quite a lot. Let's say the health screening can be per year or each checking can be up to 1,500 Sing dollar, which is quite comprehensive checking offer to the top executive position. And some other benefits I just summarized here is actually not very typical in the market. For example, for children education, for housing loan repayment, for employee saving plan, and employee tuition assistance. All this is actually not very common practice in the market. More important is, since in our survey, there are some manufacturing company joining our survey, we found many of them, they will provide overtime allowance or benefits. Manufacturing or even for some office employee, let's say they will mention after office hour, after 2 hours, after office hour or after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., something like that, they will allow employee to claim on the taxi or meal expenses. For manufacturing worker, they will provide 1.5x of the original salary. One thing I may want to emphasize this day, especially for this day, is regarding flexible working environment. Nowadays, we all know every day of us need to work at home. And so for this practice, is actually getting more and more important as well. Even after for the future, company actually consider they will make it as a regular policy for employee to do for regarding flexible working environment. So there are two typical practice. One is work from home, one is flexible work hour, or some may even provide both practice. From this survey, since we only collect data in the recent 3 to 4 weeks, we found some company, when they mention work from home, they will specifically mention it is actually for this COVID-19 situation. They will encourage employee to work from home, or even after the crisis, they will allow employee to continue to do so. Or they will offer flexible work hour to allow employee to go back to work slightly earlier or later, or they can choose the timing they are at office. Of course, some negotiation with the management and the team leader, they can have flexible working hour and work from home, or both practice. We find such practice is getting more and more common nowadays. Some other practice, I may not go through all this because it's all statistic, is regarding travel allowance. Travel allowance or travel related expense reimbursement is typically provided around 100 to 135 Sing dollar is allowed per day. And travel insurance is typically provided, but cold climate allowance is typically not provided for the travel related benefits. So just now, what I try to show you is some of the most common benefits offered to employee in Singapore. So as an employer, you may ask, I know all this, because all this is actually quite typical and quite common in Singapore, I may more or less I have some idea of already, but I may want to know what are the future trends regarding benefits administration. And that's why we also prepare some of the information for you. So we ask our survey participants, have you reviewed or taken action regarding some of the below action in the past 3 years, or do they expect to do so in the next 12 months? We will actually find most of the company, more than half of company, they actually mention they would like to review medical claim amount, or they may consider to change vendor in the future, or they will use of preferred panel or medical network service. They will consider to have a change as some of their priority. And they will also try to start to provide employee with online, that is the mobile phone app, for employee to access the benefits, or integrate the benefits information with the HRIS system. So one of the problem they have is they have so many systems in their company, and employee need to log in the first system to do this, second system to do other thing. In the future, what they want to do as a quite important change is they will like to integrate the benefits information with HRIS. So single sign-on will solve all the issue, including claim or listing, or to get the listing and so on. And regarding benefits administration top priority, especially for this day, we all talking about digitalization. So from our survey, we also found the same trend. Most companies, they will say they will focus on technology and automation in benefits administration. One of the problem in the historical flexi benefits administration or benefits administration is regarding too tedious regarding the administration process. A lot of paper document I need to prepare. But nowadays, with the advanced technology and automation, we can have a lot of it, we can do it a lot easier. And that's why the second bullet is also talking about the same thing. Formal documentation of operational policy and procedure. It can help you to better administer your benefits practice. So some other thing company may talk about, but not many of them they will say so. Some of them they talk about, let's say, for compliance. Especially, I understand many of audience today, you may be new startup from let's say it's a Chinese company, new startup in Singapore. So you want to make sure your benefits practice and policy follow the local regulation in Singapore. You want to ensure whatever you do is legal. And I think this is the second last slide of my presentation is talking about the top priority for benefits administration. So in the future, if we already have the benefit scheme, how we want to enhance it, improve it from here? Most of the companies, they will mention, first, they need to think about what are the real employee needs. Because every company, you may have different employee population and employee profile. Some may be younger generation, some may be at middle age, and so on. So you will want to understand, analyze the actual need of all the employee category, what they need, and then you provide the benefits. Otherwise, you don't really want to just follow a survey. Survey result tell me, oh, I need to give 25-day annual leave, I just give 25. I need to consider why I give 25 or 22 days. Because employees, they need to take care of their family, or they need more time for their own education, or what are the common needs of the employee, and then you think about what you do. So the first priority is analysis of employee needs and wants. Of course, when you do all this change, maybe you provide more annual leave, or you provide more medical insurance coverage. You need to do the budgeting and planning to ensure the cash flow to manage the benefits costs. And you also want to do the benchmark and insight. And that's why we conduct this survey for our client to benchmark your own policy versus market to see where you are. And hopefully from this type of survey, we haven't break down into industry and type of organization, medium size, small size, or big size organization. If we further break into all these category and then benchmark your own company, you will find more comparison suitable for your company. And of course, we will always talk about cost and risk analysis and participant and claim analysis and so on. So just now, I actually show you a lot of statistics and data. I understand there is a lot of data inside, but what I want to summarize for my whole presentation for the first part is, for benefits administration, depending on our company situation, we actually can consider these 5 bullet points. If I'm a new startup in Singapore, first I need to ensure compliance, follow the law requirement. And then I look at the typical market practice, at least ensure for the major benefits item, I'm comparable with market. And then as what I mentioned just now, you look at your own employee profile to see what is the real need of your employee, and then you provide such benefits accordingly. So if you really know the actual need of your employee, you can have your own customization, and then you can differentiate, you can stand out from other competitor. For benefits, you cannot do everything. I cannot, for every benefits item, I give the best practice in the market. It will be so wasteful and costly, but you choose what you want to differentiate yourself from other based on what employee need. And along the process, you try to think about the integration with your internal your other HR IS system or other system in the company, and think about how to provide more automation and digitalization along the way. It's actually something I would like to show you in the first part of the my presentation. I would like to ask, do you have any question or any view regarding what I presented just now? Any question? Adeline, do you see any question from
yes,
chat box?
I think Tom, why don't we wait till we finish John's session as well? There'll be a joint Q&A at the back, so maybe we'll just KIV. We've got a few questions for you.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So if you, to all the participants, if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them through, and then yeah, we can answer them towards the end. Okay. I think John will need you to go up next. I think that's your, John will be speaking next. Sorry, Tom, are you, everything okay on your side? We'll just KIV the questions for later. Okay.
Sure.
All right then. So over to you, John. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, Eileen. Tom, that was fantastic. Really appreciate you sharing all that insight and the data. Guys, thanks everyone so much for joining. I know many of us are at home, and there's an awful lot of challenges we're having in our jobs and also in our lives, making sense of this with our children, with our families. So I really do sincerely appreciate your time. I will say this in English. Please, though, text any questions on the group chat. If you have, you can write in Chinese. You can also ask the question at the end in Chinese, and you can also interrupt me to ask me to repeat. Or Kathy can help translate in Chinese. But most importantly, thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Tom, for that excellent presentation. So I'm going to share my screen now. Can everyone see this? Tom, Adeline, this looks all right? Okay,
yep,
guys.
We can see it. Cool.
Fantastic. Just to summarize the few things I'll be speaking about, Tom was very specific and did a great sort of micro analysis and a lot of statistics and data. I guess I'm going to take a step back and look at it more from a macro holistic pattern into, we gave you the numbers. Now we're going to give you the idea of what's behind the number, why and how the people feel and think. I do understand what you just saw, the statistics, and what you'll see now of the why and what they think. a lot of it will be very new. And a lot of it you'll think, oh, wow, where do we begin? That's just so much different than what my current company has. And I agree, my company doesn't have all of those things either, especially the heartbroken leave. A lot of people would like that. The key thing is you don't have to do all these things. It's important that you know them though, because I think you have to understand what either your competitors or the new market, the new countries you're growing into are doing. This will enable you then to choose one or two of them you want to do based on your employee feedback and what you think makes sense for your industry. But it'll also enable you to understand what the competitor, what the other company does, so you can adjust not only what you take in, but how you talk about this positive points of your business. So you don't compete with those things, because you don't have to compete with everything. You just need to understand them, so it enables you to go about what you do in a positive fashion. Because nowadays the candidates want to hear about this when they're interviewing. This makes a big difference when they accept or decline offers. And it makes a big difference to whether they stay and you can retain them in your businesses. So it's not just nice and kind of fun and interesting topics like we joke about the heartbroken leave or some of these other things, but you would be amazed that candidates actually speak about this, they talk about it, and it becomes a big part of their decision-making process. Okay, so let's begin. This is exactly that. On the left, you hear about what they expect, and on the right is what the reality is. Now, this is based on all of the clients we work with here in Singapore, and there's over 1,000 of them. And the reality is what we see in offer letters and contracts. The expectation is what the candidates say they want and what they think they deserve and what they should have. You'll notice number 1 and number 6 are a little bit similar. And it's all about the team, feeling a part of something. This is a lot more prevalent in younger people today. And a lot of you guys are hiring younger, more energetic people. And as a result, they want to know the company provides activities for them. They want to know whether it's trips as a team or activities, whether it's cooking classes or Friday night activities or family picnics. It's not a nice to have. They expect it. And I think good news is it's not necessarily an expensive thing for a company to do, but I think it's important for you to understand what people expect from the company to do for them. I think the older candidates and the older employees don't necessarily expect that. For them, it's good leave. They obviously the medical benefits when you start having children, the maternity and paternity leave, and that comment of paternity is getting more and more prevalent as well. And we're starting to hear more and more male candidates ask about that, and a lot of your competitors are talking about it. We're seeing things around staff discount, as Tom mentioned. This really is relevant to the industry, but we hear a lot of candidates actually complain that the company they're interviewing for doesn't have a big enough discount. The long service award, Tom also said, usually comes in on average from the poll he did to 3 to 5 years. Candidates expect that after the first year nowadays. So good news is we don't have to give everybody everything they expect. We just have to understand it. And if we give other of these benefits, we need to obviously discuss them. The AWS is also an interesting one. Not every company does it. You don't have to, but I think it's important to understand how that goes into play because it affects what people consider to be their basic guaranteed salary. Now, this is important because it is a benefit, but people now, when they think of what's my salary, they think about this as their fixed salary, and it's important for the next company to understand that. So please ask that question. What you'll see clearly, though, is a mismatch. Next, we're really going to get into this new word here. I, unfortunately, am getting old, so I'm neither of these two categories. And I think we'll talk, and some of us will laugh a little bit about it. But it's nothing to laugh about because this Gen Z workforce really has a different mindset, not only about what they expect, but about what drives them and what interests them. And it's important for us. We don't have to acquiesce to all of that, but we have to understand it, and then we have to adjust accordingly where and when appropriate. So here we go. I was born before 1980, just a little bit before, so I fit in this category. And I think one of the things you'll see here is around the changing jobs, if necessary. Notice, you'll change jobs if necessary. Whereas as we get in towards this millennial and Gen Z, there's reasons to change jobs just because. You don't have to do anything. They want to change. They want new opportunities, new ideas. And this wasn't generally in the thought process. So this is going to go into why the benefit component is so important, because that will hopefully help to retain your best people or to attract others. Some other things here are the sense of loyalty and towards the company. Not to say younger people don't have that, but what it categorically tells you as you go into this, it's not so much they're not loyal, their priorities they'll adjust. Whether it's their new skill, whether it's the knowledge they can learn, whether it's this you only live once so you might as well try something different, or this word, and I think Tom had alluded to it earlier, about a purpose-driven culture of a company, where the job itself is a purpose, meaning it's helping the community, it's helping the environment, it's helping something. Whereas I think historically that wasn't really there. People were also a little more self-reliant. They didn't expect things from their company or expect the company to give them all these extra benefits, which we're seeing now. And I think that's important. The greater good's another one, which goes into the purpose-driven environment. And the work ethic, I think we're seeing that change. I think we have a lot of stereotypes about this, and that's not fair. We just go back to what was good for us, and we maybe unfairly judge this generation. The reality is that is wrong on our part. They're not wrong for being how they are and for expecting the benefit that they want. We're wrong for thinking that they should be like us or like the way it was when we were younger, if we were from the millennial age. We have to adjust. We don't have to give everyone everything again, but we need to be more collaborative. I think this two-way feedback is another important. We talk about a benefit. It's an important comment because these younger generation expect everything to be transparent. They want to know why the company chooses the benefits, why the company doesn't have that benefit. The Gen X group probably didn't expect the company to share all that with them, let alone to receive it. So I think whenever you choose the benefit you end up having, just be prepared for a lot of direct questions as to why. And that's important because how the Gen Z and millennial take away the comments you give to them, they don't forget about it. It's important, especially because your competitors are talking very loudly, whether it be on social media, whether it be on all their brochures or the videos that they have on YouTube or various other platforms and channels. So they'll be hearing about it and they'll be inundated with it quite frequently. So be careful when you say you give this and don't give that. You have to explain things into the why. Moving on. A lot of this kind of goes back to what Tom had mentioned, except not from a statistical angle, but from just ideas of what they are. And again, I revert to say, don't worry, you don't need to tick every one of these boxes. Whether you're in tech, and I think a lot of you guys are in tech-related businesses, these aren't, just a crazy idea, paid grooming service. It happens. We have some clients, I don't even think it's on here, who pay for the medical bills of their pets, whether they have a cat or a dog. It just goes to show that people will do a lot to attract, whether it's the data science candidate, whether it's the niche product management candidate, or the commercial person, or the developer or the engineer that's very, very hard to get. So please note, you can't keep increasing salary for all these people. You can't keep giving everyone big job titles. You have your internal equity to think about. There's salary banding, there's job titles that people have to earn. So what companies, but you still need to grow. You still have very ambitious head offices, whether it's in China or overseas. So the only way to get around that and to truly be competitive is to get a lot more creative and in some cases flexible in the benefits. So these are examples. Things like birthday leave or the heartbroken leave or some of these other things that might sound kind of silly to the person of my age. The reality is I am wrong because I'm just assuming how people should think is how I think. Like what Tom did, do those polls, do the employee surveys within your company, really be sort of annoying with your staff to make sure they fill it out, and they're sharing with you, because unless they share with you, they can't then have too much opinions about what the company does or does not offer. Whether it's the internal food, you'd be amazed when we ask some of the candidates to accept or decline offers at our clients. They'll actually reference the meals. They'll reference, the monthly drinks night. They'll reference they can work at home at any time. And sometimes you think, but we need you in this team environment, or we need you to share. And we think how we like to share, or what's good for us, or what was good when we were younger. But I think they just have such a different viewpoint on it. The incentive trips is also quite popular with the younger generation. They often, and a lot of them nowadays, live at home, so they're not necessarily paycheck to paycheck, so they travel a lot more frequently than some of the older people. And as such, this is a lot more of a realistic idea for them, even though their salaries might be smaller. The monthly outings, this is what we talked about the biggest misconception about what the company should do for their socially. And they expect a more social environment from a company, as opposed to a clock in, clock out, just corporate environment. So it's important to take that seriously. Finally, what are they thinking? And what do candidates really want? The professional development, 40% of entry to mid-management, because that's really where this is. They actually say their company neglects their professional development. It's an interesting one, because when I was younger, we always had this, the golden rule. I'm from New York, and the golden rule was by an old president, John F. Kennedy, said, ask not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them. So it's an interesting one that our staff expect us to further their career development and professional development. It's not that you should do it to be better. They expect you should do it for them. And this is an important one, because that's a big amount. And that number only increases as people are getting older now, because to really become the next senior manager, you almost need that excess professional development. So this is going to continue to increase. Their company lack digital adaptation. Tom alluded to this, even in doing the benefits that they can claim, companies aren't digital savvy enough. But forgetting that, I wouldn't say it's a benefit, but the more tech savvy your business is, whether they have laptops, whether the connectivity is there from working from home, people will actually hold that against you as an employer. And they feel that that's a benefit when choosing a next job, whether it's the phones, the laptops, the connectivity, or the workstations that they have. 91% do not consider monetary benefit as the top decision. This is a lot more with the younger crowd than the older generation. But the reality is, all of you guys will be hiring a lot more of the younger crowd than people like myself or in people in my age group. So with that in mind, I think it's kind of 50-50 in that, yes, 91% will talk about all these other benefits non-monetarily that affect them. They will, though, keep putting the onus back to money when it's the actual time to sign a contract or to leave. But the good news is, what it clearly tells you is that if you can't compete with Facebook and Google and Apple for an amazing, absolute top 5% of the salary in your industry or within that job type, good news is, if you can have some creative or potentially interesting benefit, it will help to fight against just higher and higher and higher salaries. We can't keep competing at that level. Because they will look for a leadership style, and that's almost considered a benefit, or the work culture, and then they will take things externally. Here's an important one about expectations on benefits when candidates, why someone would leave, which is another way of saying why they might stay in the company. Employee engagement was strengthened. This goes back to the point about they expect a benefit to be, if we go back here, whether it's the company outings, or we go back here to talk about trips, activities, recreational events, or sports activities. Your younger generation will actually use that as to feel part of something. We use this word purpose-driven environment. Younger people, the benefit to have the purpose of being part of something bigger than themselves. It's important. It's not just a job. They don't have to just work for you or for me or for any of us. So making sure that it's not just the corporate environment, you're doing your job, we're paying you to do your job, and we're giving you health insurance and holidays. Is that really just enough? It was enough for me, but it's not enough for them now. And I think the benefits around connecting, you see all these hands linking up, it's a metaphor for what you need to provide in terms of a benefit. Okay, clearly going back to this non-monetary and going back here about professional development, people will stay. You will retain them. It'll help you with retention if you have a concrete training and development plan. You have to some extent, localize this to the country you're in. Candidates maybe in China will have a different idea of what internal training is or what's external career development versus someone in Indonesia or Singapore or in other environments. And I think some countries put a little more focus on master's degree. Other countries put more focus on actually licenses like a project management certificate or extra in engineering, like a network certificates with engineers or developers. So really try to find out within a specific job type and in with a specific country if there's anything unique or different. So do your homework on that. And again, you don't have to offer everything, but know what they might expect. And even just being a lot more transparent. We've had some clients say, oh, but the staff should have known, it's on our internal website. Or they should have known because we talked about it when they joined. And I sort of laugh because that's so archaic. You can't expect people to remember something you spoke about during onboarding. And you can't expect your staff to constantly reverting back to your internet page, even if you email them about it. Remember, your competitors and other clients are frequently and consistently contacting them to talk about all of these quite sexy different benefits they have and all these things they can use to attract. So if you're just hoping and kind of praying that they're going to remember stuff you spoke about or visit your internal website, I think that's just incorrect, unfortunately. You, and more importantly than just HR, but the actual line managers who manage all these developers and all of these product people and marketing people and finance people, you need them to be trained on how to articulate these benefits. How can we talk about them? How do we explain them to our staff? And I would almost bet that a lot of your line managers who you are a business partner to, they don't know all of your benefits well enough and the details of them to then be able to use that in a positive way to get and retain your staff. So spend a few minutes maybe having a discussion or almost like a lunch and learn, so to speak, with the line managers. I know in my company, I had someone complain to me that they wish we had dental because for the last 6 months, or for the last year, their kids' dental bills were high. And I said, wait a minute, we do have dental here at Michael Page, Page Executive. And they go, oh. And I thought to myself, that's on me, not them. I could get angry at them for not visiting our website, but I didn't mention it to my team. I just thought they would have done what I did and saw and read all the emails that our HR sent across, but they don't. These young people, they're not reading all the emails. They're more on their various other platforms for communicating, whether it's WhatsApp or WeChat or you name it, right? So it's really important you spend a few minutes to remind people in a more engaging fashion than just on your website. Finally, what the young people consider when accepting a new job offer. To maximize their skill in their ability, not to help the company grow. And this is, I wouldn't say a sad point, I think it's just the reality. It's about their traits, their growing ability, how they, we use this, you only live once, but you have to tailor the company to the individual, not the individual to the company, unfortunately. And I think this is an important thing for people, and especially HR for understanding, especially during the offer period, because the last thing you want is to get someone to offer stage and they don't accept because of one of these benefits or they're not articulated well enough. Or you lose a real star person because your competitors are talking about free lunches and gym membership, and you have a whole lot more to offer. And if it gets down to that, it just means you're not articulating well enough the other stuff you guys can provide. So that's it for my part. Let me go back to, how do I unshare here? Stop share. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening, for paying attention. Clearly, as Tom mentioned, that PPT you just saw, I think Adeline and Kathy are happy to share. I know Tom's happy to share his. One was more statistical and micro. One was more about the background, the why, the decision-making factors people have, which lead into those very good statistics. So this is not meant to scare anybody. It's not meant to say you need to change it overnight. Don't worry. Simply just educate yourselves on it. Educate your line managers on it. Know what the competitors do, because that enables you to do what you do well, not to compete with them, but just to adjust what your offering is. And at least you'll know what your people are being told from the outside market. And that's important. So thank you very much, everybody. Kathy?
Yes, thank you, John, and thank you, Tom, for the informative sharing. So now it's the last session, which is Q&A. So I think we've already got several questions. So the first one is from Hera. The question is, can we get more regarding the meal voucher?
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good question. Tom,
Okay.
over to you.
Thanks. Okay, for meal voucher is actually some of the company I found they're actually in those remote industrial area. So I understand they have some they have canteen operate by themselves or a share canteen. So actually what they can do is they can provide some electronic voucher. I'm not so sure whether it's just a voucher in paper or electronic voucher. They offer to the employee. So it's around 50 Sing dollar per month. So they can use this voucher to pay for their meal in the industrial area. Some company, because they are in that premises, that's why they have that canteen they can use. That's why they can provide a voucher. Friendly is not a very common practice. I only found around 5%, just now from my statistic, around 5% of company in our survey result, they provide such benefits. And if they provide, it's typically around 50 Sing dollar per month.
Okay, thanks for the sharing. I think we have another one, which is from Hattie. I heard from a client of mine that grant schemes for companies who implement flexible hours to local employees. Have you heard any new regulations regarding this?
It's actually, yeah, I actually saw what they mentioned in the group chat. Yeah, I think they are correct. Actually, there is a news I recently read from the newspaper. Actually, government will provide certain subsidy to support such flexible arrangement. And government will actually provide subsidy. Yeah, I think it's around 2,000. I can't remember exactly about the news, but they try to do this to support company to offer work from home and flexible working environment to offer to employee. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, sorry, I was doing a call just now. So yeah, so I actually just ended a call. Hi everyone, I'm Hattie from Page. So I just ended a call this morning with a client within a capital management company, an investment company, and they're sharing that because of this COVID-19, a lot of companies are trying to adjust and measure the cost effectiveness of maybe continuing or adopting this work from home schedule or flexibility in a different way. And they have done research and it shows that Singapore government are actually having some sort of schemes around giving local employees about maybe 2 or 3K per year sort of benefits, right? Or grant, rather you call it, whereby you're able to use it to provide facilities or build up whatever that's needed to help the employees work more efficiently. So this is basically for grant. If you can show that you have minimum number of like a remote cost per week or something like that. So there are certain measurements around it. The reason behind it, I think, is the sentiment is that I think government is also trying to promote happiness and well-being at work. And they want, you know, to be able to basically have more companies providing that flexibility because that's, you know, what we're seeing was needed in the market. Yeah, so that's what I hear. So feel free to explore more, I guess.
Thank you, Hattie.
Thank you.
So there's one question for John. John, can you see the question from Yuan Yuan? Wondering, is it possible to have an a la carte annual leave scheme, which employees can ask for the leave at the same amount, but for different reasons?
You know what? The answer is yes and no, because that's very much a specific general management related answer. So for example, we sort of go back to that heartbroken leave thing. You know, if one of the staff came in and was crying and just literally could not work, just have a day off. I think a lot of times, and I understand why from an HR perspective, we want every single thing to be black and white, because it takes away any risk. It makes things just a lot more smoother to be able to quantify and to go back if anything bad happens in the future. But sometimes you almost just treat people like adults. If they need a day or two here and there, and you can almost give your line management that the approval to treat people like adults. You don't need to have a broken heart day, but God forbid someone is miserable, just have a day off. You know, on something like this right now, people might not want to take holiday because there's nothing to do. You can't leave your house. But clearly people are getting a little bit frustrated, especially those in sales related, business development related jobs, because they can't generate any new business and they have their kids at home or their elder parents, and you sort of worry about them. So maybe just take a day off, it's fine. And so a la carte, can you change it? Sometimes people change these things per different job type. Sometimes when companies have a factory or plant, they make it a la carte for the blue collar worker, but within, you almost give them like a drop down box. So it's a la carte, but it's within these 2 or 3 choices only. It's not random. So yes, you can have it a la carte per job type. Yes, you can have it per job grading. The more senior, clearly maybe they'll have more, 1 or 2 more options. But just go back to treat people like adults within reason, give them a little more flexibility, especially at times like this. And from an HR, I think the best advice I would have is now with your line management, you don't want to lose anyone because people get burnt out right now. Everybody's stressed and anxiety levels are very high. So now it's a really good time to think about some of these things. Kathy, over to you. You're on mute.
On mute. Thank you. So there's one more question regarding employee savings plan. So I think Tom is expert in this. Can you help to explain more?
Okay. Yeah. As what I mentioned just now, for employee saving plan is actually similar to a supplementary pension fund. It depends on company how to name it, and is actually more for retention purpose. I only found 1 or 2 companies they have such practice out of all our participants. It's actually more for retention purpose. Let's say for those employees with at least 3 years of service, they will put certain amount into those into the fund, and actually every year you can take certain portion from that fund. Maybe for the first year you can take 20%, next year you take 20%. Every year you will contribute new amount into the fund, and every year you can take certain portion from the fund. It's true, is typically for those financial companies, it's more common to provide such a scheme, or some technology company they will do so, but it's still not very, very common. I will say that typically only around 5% of companies they will do so, and they will only do so for selected employee. Yeah, that's about it for the saving plan.
All right, thanks. Okay, someone just asked me offline, can we share the PPT from today? The answer is yes. So if anyone who wants the slides from today, please reach out to me. I can share with you later. And if there's any more questions, if no more questions, I think this is for today.
Okay, good.
I believe this is now the end of the conversation. So if you have any further questions regarding the benefits and all the compensation in Singapore, please feel free to reach out to us, John, Tom, me, anytime. And thank you for everyone to join today's call.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, John.
Thank you so
Claudia.
much,
Thank you, Kathy.
Adeline, Tom, and everybody on the call. We really appreciate your time. Please stay safe, be well, and we hope to see you in person in
Yeah,
the next couple
of course.
months. Take
Sure,
care,
sure.
everybody.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.